Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Meet Jill, the quintessential neighborhood mom with a fervent drive to help structured individuals unearth their latent creativity and embrace their intuition. With firsthand experience in data-centric roles, she understands the hollow feeling of excelling professionally, yet lacking personal fulfillment. This unfulfilled narrative isn't just Jill's, she witnesses it within her circle of friends, family, and community. Many gifted individuals, she observes, hold back from realizing their full potential and find little joy in their daily work. Jill believes the key to changing this lies in rekindling one's innate creativity, often unrealized by many. Her latest work, Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, oh, I love that, by the way, serves as a daily companion for those aspiring for a remarkable life. It's an anthology of profound quotes, practices, and strategies that Jill has curated over 2 decades, designed not as a conventional read, but as an everyday life companion. The book aims to empower readers, offering insights wherever they seek upliftment. Thank you so much, Jill, for joining me today. It's so exciting to have a fellow mother who is an
I
entrepreneur
know.
and fellow podcaster. So we already have so many things in common. So thank you so much for joining
hmm
me today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course. And just to start, if you can just, I know I already gave your introduction, but if there's anything that I maybe perhaps missed out or anything that you'd like to share about yourself and your journey and a traditional data-driven role to becoming such a passionate advocate for creativity.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me see if I can give you the Coles notes. I did start my career um, in human resources and in sales roles within the hospitality industry. So it's really fun. I got to do lots of events and there's a lot of strategy in that. And I didn't realize that I had any creativity in that type of environment. I was very corporate structured and I thought I was really good at details. I thought I was really good at following the rules and getting the things done with all of the structure that was in place in the organizations I worked with. And I was really good at that. But when I became a mom and I took time away from work, because I'm in Canada, so we get a year off after having a baby, which is like, I know, very privileged. And within that time, specifically with my second child, I really started to detach a little bit from this world of work, if you will, and just be a little bit more in my body, in my role as mom, as my own person outside of my career, which I hadn't experienced since I started working. I was work, 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 right? As many of us are. And I realized that I really did have a lot of creativity sort of living within me. And I decided what I wanted to do was open a business. I had gone to business school. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And instead of going back to work after the birth of my second child, I opened up a retail consignment store in my town. So I didn't have to commute. I could be near the kiddos. And then the pandemic hit and everything hit the fan. It didn't, the timing didn't work, obviously, with everything being shut down and I'm trying to open something. And I went through the whole life cycle of starting and closing a business from that venture, but it led me to the work I'm doing now in a really interesting way. Um, Through all of the ups and downs of being a parent in the pandemic, as you probably know, I really needed an outlet to talk to other moms. And I felt like I had no control of my external circumstances. So, what I did was I really focused on what I could control within myself and I dove deep into personal development. And so, that's sort of how my podcast started, is just learning and sharing and learning and sharing. And then it grew into doing speaking engagements and it grew into this book. And yeah, that's a long-winded answer of sort of my backstory.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing that. What is your podcast called?
It's called Grow Like a Mother.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So everybody wants mother tips and you want to grow within yourself or within your business, listen to her podcast. I always love supporting other people's podcasts. I think it's so important that everybody's message gets out there. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
want to talk about your book here. The Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. Oh, just the title alone, literally, I'm like, okay, sold.
Right. Yeah, it's the things
Everybody
we all
wants
want.
right. So,
hmm
and it's structured as a daily companion guide, right? And so, can you
Yes.
just explain the idea behind this format and how you envision readers uh, to pretty much interact with it, just to kind of get them into
hmm
it?
I love that word interact. That's exactly what I'm hoping for. So this book started when I was about 20 and was I've always been into the personal development thing, but sort of on and off. I like dabbled in it. And so I created this document on my computer, like in a Word doc, just of things that helped me. That if I ever kind of fell off the wagon or had a hard day, I could refer back to them in my own personal way and just remind myself of tools that had worked for me. And so over the years, I just kind of kept adding to this Word doc. And then when I got into personal development in a big way, it just exploded. And I'm like, I can do something with this. Like, this can help other people too, because this is so juicy. It's just got so much, like over the span of 2 decades, to be able to put together in one place all the tools that have helped me from so many different areas of life, so many different teachers and mentors or perspectives. And so I sat with it for a bit, knowing I wanted to share. But I had envisioned almost like a page a day calendar. You know those ones where you like rip and there's like a quote or yeah. So I had thought about doing that. Um, and then I thought I don't want the messages to be just looked at and thrown in the garbage. I want it to be something that people can really refer back to as I had over the years. Um, and so what I came up with was this, it's just a small little, like it's not big, it's just a little thing, but 150 pages, and it's separated into the four categories of happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. There's a lot of white space. There is basically each page is its own chapter, I guess, if you will, so that you can just open up the book into whatever section, the happy, the healthy, the wealthy, the wise, that you want some inspiration on for that day. Just open it up and kind of get that boost of morning motivation, or if you're in the middle of a hard day, or if you're looking for an answer, some different perspective. And so you don't have to read it cover to cover, which is the best. As busy moms, as much as I love reading, I don't sit down and read, right? We don't have time. It's difficult to pick up a book and then try to get into it, put it down for a couple of weeks because life, then you get back into it and it's, so I really envisioned this as like sitting on a nightstand or in a living room and just being available um, as a resource to sort of like have me in your pocket with these little affirmations or questions or journal prompts or tips that can really help throughout whatever phase of life.
I love that. Yes, because we need some time for ourselves. And I just literally was in the airplane and I had a book with me. And I think that was the first time I actually opened it up because we don't have the time for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the airplane, I'm just like reading. And I'm like, oh, finally, I get some time to read. But in this book, you actually have gathered a lot of wisdom, and then a lot of them are like quotes or pieces of advice. Is there one particular one that actually resonates to you? A
Ooh,
quote?
that's such a good question. Um, the one that I always sort of anchor back to is this idea of weekly planning, because time management is sort of is the bones of what I teach. Everything that I do with the mindset work and the goal setting and like self-care, that all comes back into time management. And so for me, making sure that you start your week with like an overview of what you want to have go on that week, like your top 3 results you want to see, not a to-do list, but like a results list. That's one of my favorite tips from the book. But being flexible within that so that when curveballs come at you and when things go sideways, you can rearrange. So allowing yourself the flexibility within the process of planning your week. And then I would say something I've learned recently that I really loved that struck me as different and doable way to work self-care into your week is, instead of, many of us will think, okay, I need to book the massage and go to that massage on Thursday, November 12th, whatever. And maybe you got sick that day and you have to skip it. And then all of a sudden your self-care is gone. Or maybe you signed up for a yoga class or something that you have to commit to at a certain date and time each week. And you don't exactly feel like it, like as women, depending on what time of the month it is, we're more or less likely to want to go out and do something social. Or so self-care in that way felt really rigid for me. And I love the idea of scheduling 1 hour a week into your calendar, not having to have it on the same day and time each week. Just find within that coming week 1 hour, and don't set a to do for it. You show up and you have like, I always encourage people to have a list in their phone handy of like things they like to do, things that fill their cup, whether it's like, calling a friend or reading a book or having a great cup of coffee, going for a walk, whatever. And so having that list available, so when you show up for yourself in that hour you've dedicated in your calendar, you can see what you feel like doing. Because if it's a nap, that is self-care, you know? And if it is going to a yoga class or going for a run, you can do that too. You've dedicated the hour, but you're so much more likely to show up for yourself if you take the pressure off. And I think that's made a world of difference for me in the last 6 months.
Oh, totally. And our phones are handy. Set a
Yeah.
reminder. Hey, are you taking time for yourself today?
Yeah.
As you just, even if it's a recorded memo and then the reminder comes up, you look at your phone and then there it is right there on your notifications. Are you taking time? Are you feeling empowered today? Are you, taking time to breathe? Are you stepping away from the computer? Because, okay, because you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur and I know many entrepreneur women. Actually, I just got back from a conference of entrepreneur women. We don't have time for ourselves, or we don't take time for ourselves because we love what we do so much and we have so much passion for it that we're actually just stuck on the computer, just like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is good. Because we want to create. But I notice sometimes, I'm not sure if you ever experienced this, but I tend to get drained. I'm like, but I'm so happy what I'm doing, but yet I forget about me because I am thinking about how much can I serve others. But what about servicing myself? It's very
Yes.
important. Do you ever come across situations like that where you're like, okay, I need to seriously get away from the computer? And what are some things that you do?
Yeah, I love that you named it because we're a special breed, right? Entrepreneurs, we're like, the work is fulfilling to us. In a way, it's self-care, but that's just one of our roles, right? We're also ourselves just in existence, our own self. Plus, we're a mom, plus, we're a sister, we're maybe a wife, we're a daughter, we're a friend, we're all of the other roles in our lives too. And I think the way that I like to think of it is kind of like a wheel. I often will draw a circle and like split it into pie pieces. And then maybe there's 8 slices. And I kind of identify the different areas of my life that are important to me. So it's like career, health, romance, friendships, whatever, and I fill it in, like I scribble in the little pie piece of how good I think I'm doing in that particular category, with the goal of it not being full, but like balanced. So if it was a wheel in a car, it would actually roll smoothly, you know? And
Mhm.
so by doing that exercise, I kind of see like where I need to put some more effort in. And often it's that like friendship spoke of the pie, Reddit. And so sort of all that to say, like, there are so many roles that we play, so many different facets of our life that need our attention. They're not always going to give us the same joy and motivation that our work does or that our family does or whatever is really gets you going, whatever is sort of exciting for you. But if we forget about those other pieces, our life can get really off kilter. um
Yeah,
yeah, so it's
totally. Have you ever heard of the lady Leah Remlet? Remlet? If I
no, I
pronounced her
don't
name.
think so. No.
I never did either. I was so happy that I actually was able to listen to her because she was talking about how to be successful in your business, yet really show your kids that you're there for them as well. And she was sharing a story that, she was doing multiple things and she was just like, she took a lot of her masculine energy and she was just like, go, 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 go. Well, eventually the body shuts down when you're just doing too much. And it shut down actually when she was taking her kids to the zoo. And she shared this story that she will never forget the moment that it was like her 5-year-old daughter grabbing her 3-year-old's or her little 3-year-old sister's hand, and they were looking at mommy. The husband was there. Fortunately, she had blacked out and passed out, right? And then the ambulance came and everything, and she saw her in her eyes, and she saw like her child's like fear, like, oh my gosh. And that was a moment that she said, I will never ever ever work so much where I'm not sleeping properly and that I am not spending time with my family. Because when we are asked the question, what is the most important thing to us? A lot of us say, oh, our kids, our family. But do they know that? Because we're so wrapped up in our daily lives, like with computer, mostly the business. I'm thinking about entrepreneur women right now. And it's hard to, we don't really know what they need unless they speak up, because we're just like, oh, we got to provide, provide, provide. But no, what about that feminine energy that we have to tap into and be that nurturing and loving for them? And so I've,
Mhm.
from hearing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to like really do some changes here, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't right now because okay, no, I need to stop that and just attend to my children. And even though we have both parents here, still they need their mom sometimes. They need both. They need the
Yes,
mom and father. But they need the
totally.
mom. When they need mom, they need mom.
And
Anyway,
it's
so
funny that you mentioned, do they know, how important they are? But the other thing about that is like, are we putting our money where our mouth is? And we're saying family is a big priority and value for us, but look at your calendar. How are you spending your time? Like,
exactly.
are you spending your time on things, and it doesn't have to be equal, but like, are you spending your time on things that you're telling yourself are important and priorities for you? Because if you're not, maybe a couple quick shifts can help you put everything back in balance.
Totally. And so she gave us a whole bunch of like ideas and everything. And so I had written them down and I haven't even gone through my notes yet, but I was just like, oh, wow. So definitely her name is Leah Remelet, the good, great
Okay.
speaker. If you ever get in connection with her, you guys have like similar ideas and expertise topics and things like that. I was like, she's really good to speak with. Yeah. So I also want to talk a little bit about, well, still continuing your book. What is an actionable step that people can go ahead and take when it comes to spending time with their family and yet feeling like they've completed their daily tasks, whether it's work, chores, um, anything that they have in their daily life?
Yeah. Best thing I like to recommend to people, especially when they're first starting to like be conscious about this and really being intentional about showing up in all the areas. Because sometimes this is like mind blowing, like, oh, I need to do this, right? But where do I start? So I always recommend to people that they focus on the role that they're in for the time they're in it and then switch hats, right? So when you're at work, you do your best at work. You show up and you push hard and you make those calls and you hustle. And then when the workday is done and you can turn your computer off, you put on your mama hat and you go home and you love up on those kids and you give them your full attention and you're present. You're not thinking about the emails that you can, hear pinging in the back of your head. You can tackle those when you're work tomorrow. And then that way there's a release of guilt, because mom guilt's like a super real thing that we all struggle with, right? It's so difficult. But I found one of the best ways to help with that is to really be present in the role that you're in. Um, because I found in the beginning, if I could get someone to watch the kids and I had some extra time to go and do my work or to do self care or something other than momming, I felt so guilty. I didn't enjoy what I was doing. Right. And it's
Right.
like, same thing when you're at home and you're like, here, I'm with my kids, we're doing puzzles or Barbies or whatever the thing. But I'm thinking about the project I've got going on and who I need to call. And I'm making a mental to do list in my head. I'm not present in the way that I want to be.
Right.
So sort of segregating that is a really good way to start.
Totally. And then you talk a lot about intuition and helping others, trust their intuition. And I think a lot of people are starting to tap into more of their intuition. But how does one begin to actually do that, but yet, and then also trust it?
Yeah, it's a practice for sure. But the first thing is like you need space to be quiet, which is so hard as moms. But the reason I say that is like at the base level, intuition, right, is that inner voice, the inner truth of like who you are, what is right, what is truth for you, right? And because it's truth, it doesn't need to shout from the rooftops. Like it doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. Intuition knows that it's the real deal. So it's quiet. Whereas in our lives, there's noise coming at us all the time. Everything else is loud, right? And so intuition is often drowned out unless we intentionally tune into it. And the best way to do that, I find my intuition is like super high gear when I'm in the shower, because that's one of the only moments in my day where I'm by myself and it's quiet. And there's also all this energetic stuff about like water movement and things like that. But um, just having any time quiet by yourself for like 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes is a really great place to start. And it's kind of like meditation, but not really. Just sit and be present, because thoughts are going to pop up, right? I don't know about you, but right before I go to bed too is when all these thoughts come in my mind because I'm finally quiet. And that's our intuition trying to speak to us. So that is the best way to get started, I think.
Yes. Do you know where I hide when I take my alone time? I hide in my bathroom, which is kind of like also a closet and all that stuff. But there's enough space for me just to do like some breathing.
Yeah.
So I will literally go in there and lock the door. So my husband cannot bother me. They're like, oh, maybe she's in there getting ready, or maybe she's using the restroom or whatever. But I'm actually meditating, and I'm actually taking that time for myself because we need
Oh,
it. We need
yeah,
it. Because if mommy's not happy, nobody in the household is going to be happy. Let's be real here. But when mom
100%.
but when mommy's happy and feeling her best, everyone benefits. So
Yeah. And that's the thing, that it's this ripple effect, right? Like we all know the cliches, like you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's like, well, yes, we know that in theory, but until we put it into practice and really start to take care of ourselves and see how much more energy we have, see how much more connection comes to our kids, see how much more productivity comes in our business because we're full up. And that's the literal only reason that these things are improving is because we took care of ourselves. Then it's like, oh, I get it. I see the importance, right?
totally, yes. And then everybody benefits. And but especially us, because we do have to take care of ourselves. And we
Yeah.
talk a lot about community on this podcast as well. And you mentioned when I see many of your, like, is it family and friends and like different people in your life that experience, some type of burnout, and or they don't feel like they're much in their role. How can we as a community start fostering environments where creativity and intuition are both celebrated?
Mm, that's such a great question. It's hard because we have been sort of taught to value other things, right?
Yeah.
But I think that these softer, more feminine things are really important in so many ways. And so, one way that I really like to foster them is through community and sort of open conversation about it. I get usually about twice a year, I'll join some sort of community um, where it's online almost always, but you have that sense of like connectedness to other people who are going through the same thing, or you're in the same season of life. Or if I can't find a community like that that's going to serve my need and my purpose for being able to communicate on these things and talk about them and work through with other people, podcasts, right? Finding podcasts of people who are talking about the things that you're going through and who inspire you, who are doing the things you want to do, right? And I think books, YouTube, like all of those things are accessible to us at either no cost or really minimal cost as a way to be in our creativity, express it, and feel held, within that, have some space for that. If the people in your life aren't interested in the same things you are, or if they just don't get it, they're like, yeah, it's cool for you, but I don't understand, or I'm not into it. A lot of people I know experience that with their loved ones in their close circle. They're like, I have all this, I don't know, I want to talk about it. Or like, who knows, maybe they're into like astrology and the full moon and all this stuff. And they're like, yes, I love this, but their friends and their family don't get it. That's fine because there's like the whole world out there that we have access to. Find your people. And that's the best way to really start to live into it and feel connected to it.
Yeah, like I used to when I was a first time mom, I didn't know who to communicate because none of my friends were mothers yet. I was like, even though I was already 26 years old when my first child, this was like 15 years ago, and when my first child was born, but none of my other friends had children yet. So I actually had to like search online and like see what was going on. And I'm like, okay, where are other mom groups out there? And I found like
Yeah.
Meetup was very helpful. I still have a lot of friends from that mom group that I still communicate with even though they moved to like Sweden or like Florida or wherever they've moved, but yet we keep in contact. And I feel like since the whole COVID thing, pandemic thing, whatever you want to call it, happened, it gave us the opportunity to use Zoom as a tool to meet other people, find other groups that align to our values, our interests, our creative side, like astrology. By the way, did you get a chance to see that eclipse on Saturday? Was it Saturday? On Saturday?
It was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
so beautiful.
I I was actually in a breath work at the conference during that time where we were doing like what is it called? I've never experienced this before. It was very interesting. It was sound bath. Have you ever had that done before?
Oh, I haven't, but I've heard of it, but I haven't done it.
Amazing experience. It was my first time, and I've done like a lot of woo-woo stuff before in my life, but this one was like amazing. I'm just like, I love this. So anyway, that was one. Hey, if there's any apps out there on sound bath, go take that time for yourself, at least 5 minutes just to relax. And that's something I would recommend. But as I was saying about the community, it's very important that we meet with a bunch of people that align with us because we feel like we can support each other. And like a lot of my family and I, like, okay, we're family, right? But I don't feel like we're family sometimes because our thoughts are different. And that's okay. That's okay, because I like to hear other people's opinions and get their thoughts and whatever. But I notice I'm mostly happy when I'm in my family, where I've like my soul family is what I call it, where we are like, okay, I love you. I don't know you yet, but I love you. And you just know. And those are the people that you want to surround yourself with, especially important during recovery. Because all the old, well, for me anyway, and because in recovery, what had happened is I had to drop a lot of those people because they were just not serving me in any way. They were just wanting me to drink more because I was their drinking buddy. And so it takes time, but eventually they're out of your life and you start discovering who you are, doing creative things, which I loved. I don't know if you love this or if you try this, but those coloring books with those fractal outlines where you just kind of pencil in using coloring pencils and are just drawing. And it was so therapeutic. But then my kids were scribbling all over it. I'm like, oh no, it's okay. We'll make that like artwork and put it on the refrigerator. So it's like our mom and son worked on this project together. But anyway, so I don't know, I'm going off at a tangent, but I think community is very, very important. So yes, thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely having an opportunity to connect with that soul family, like you said, is just like, you know them when you find them, right?
Yes. Yes. You know you when you know it. That's your intuition, by the way, right? So
Hmm.
you just have that knowing, you're like, yes, that's who I need to surround myself with. Yeah. So is there any upcoming projects, or where can people find your book, by the way, or even want to find you if they want to work with you or follow you?
Yeah, thanks, Gina. It's the best way online. I'm at Grow Like a Mother on Facebook and Instagram. I tried to be, a cool TikTok kid, but I'm just not a kid anymore, I've realized. So TikTok is not an area I'm at, and I'm okay with that now. So Instagram and Facebook. And my website is jillwright.ca. There's links to the book there. It comes out November 26th. So it may be on pre-order and it may be in the world, depending on when this is aired, but it'll be available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Chapters Indigo in Canada, all the places you can get books. And yeah, I think it'll be a
That's
really great special resource.
Yeah, we also had something in common too. So you said you're from Toronto, Canada?
Mm, yes.
So Four Seasons, I actually, and you were in the hotel industry, but I actually worked at Four Seasons for 16, I still work there, so almost 17 years now. But
Wow.
not in the catering business, but in the spa business. And so I've been there for a long time. So we have that in common as well, the hospitality
That's so cool.
business.
Yeah.
Pretty fun, but yeah, I've been there for a long time. Just like, okay, one day a week is good enough for me because I'm pivoting. I do massage and I'm focusing mostly like on Reiki as well. But I love doing what I do, as you love doing what you do too. And
Yeah.
I can't not wait to get your book. And because I love interaction. Like I love to write things down, and I really feel like, and that's when you really start discovering your intuition. You really start discovering yourself is by you having those types of tools available for you, so you can just dive deep in them and just do whatever your creative mind does.
Exactly. Give it space to do its thing and you'll start
Yeah,
to understand and hear it. Yeah.
totally. And just as we wrap up, for all of those listeners out there who feel that they aren't contributing as much as they know they're capable of, what is one message that you like to leave with them?
Hmm. Let me sit with that one for a second.
Yeah, take your
I
time.
think I think that the thing that wants to come through the most with regards to that is just giving ourselves grace for being in whatever season we're in. I remember being really wanting to spend all my time on my business when it was first getting started, but my babies were super small. And I sort of had to come to the acceptance that like there was groundwork I could be laying, there was foundational stuff I could be doing, that when I had the space and the time, I could just sprint into the business. But now wasn't my time to sprint. Now was my time to sort of learn and strategize and lay the foundation. And so if you're in a season where you feel like you could be contributing more, or you want to be doing some more in some way in your life, maybe take just a second and think about how you could be setting yourself up for the future with the work that you're doing today, even if it's not giving you that immediate satisfaction of feeling like, yes, I did A, B, and C off my to-do list today, or I was able to create this big impact, whatever, right? It could be a health goal, it could be a career goal, it could be whatever. But just honor the space you're in and don't stop working, but just know that sometimes we'll have more capacity to sprint and other times we're walking.
Right. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Jill, for being on my show today. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I cannot wait to get your book.
Thank you so much for having me on. This conversation was such a gift. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.